Chapter 1. A Mysterious Encounter. The sprawling cityscape of Valora Prime shimmered beneath the twin moons, a cacophony of colors and sounds unique to this bustling hub of intergalactic life. Beings of every conceivable shape and form wandered the neon-lit streets, creating a mesmerizing tapestry of life. Amid this blend of species, Kira felt out of place. The Mirians were known for their unwavering composure, mental discipline, and above all, their emotional distance. But ever since her arrival on this human-dominated space station, her control had begun to slip in ways she couldn't explain. Kira's violet skin, a deep hue that shifted slightly in the light, was speckled with bioluminescent flecks that pulsed subtly when she experienced strong emotions. Right now, they glowed faintly, betraying her unease. As a Mirian, this was deeply embarrassing. She was on a critical mission, one she couldn't afford to compromise with errant emotions. The Council had sent her to study humans. Their rapid advancement in both technology and culture had caught the attention of many species, and it was Kira's task to observe their strengths and weaknesses. However, her carefully crafted plans unraveled the moment she collided with a human male in the station's crowded marketplace. "Hey, are you okay?" the human asked as he steadied her, his warm hands gripping her slender shoulders. His eyes were a rich shade of brown, filled with concern and curiosity. He was tall, with an athletic build that suggested both strength and agility. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd just run his hands through it in frustration. Kira's heart, a muscle she was trained to ignore, pounded erratically. Mirians were supposed to be immune to such primitive biological reactions. Her mind quickly cataloged him. Male, age approximately 27 human years. Occupation unknown but likely technical, based on the grease stains on his sleeves and the ID badge clipped to his belt. She should have walked away, but something held her in place. There was a warmth in his gaze, a kindness that clashed with her preconceived notions of humans. Everything about him felt disarming in a way she hadn't anticipated. "I'm fine," Kira replied coolly, her voice a soft melodic hum. "I was distracted." Her attempt to regain composure failed as her bioluminescent freckles flickered slightly, revealing her emotional turmoil. The human, Jack according to his ID, noticed the flicker but didn't comment. "You're new here, right? I don't think I've seen you around." "I'm just passing through," Kira lied, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. The fact that a human was able to so easily throw her off balance was troubling. Perhaps there was more to them than she initially thought. Jack grinned, seemingly oblivious to the caution in her gaze. "Well, if you need a guide or just someone to show you the best noodle stalls, I'm your guy." His easygoing demeanor contrasted sharply with her rigid formality. Kira hesitated. Accepting his offer would mean deviating from her assigned tasks, but something about him piqued her interest. And perhaps observing a human up close could be beneficial. She nodded slowly. "Very well, I suppose I could use some assistance." As they began walking through the crowded marketplace, Kira couldn't help but feel a strange sensation building in her chest. It was unfamiliar, a flutter of excitement mixed with curiosity, a dangerous mix for someone like her. She had been trained to control her emotions, yet this simple human was effortlessly breaking down her defenses. Jack pointed out various stalls, explaining the different foods, gadgets, and cultural trinkets unique to humans. Kira listened intently, absorbing the nuances of human culture. But as the evening wore on, she found herself less interested in the cultural exchange, and more focused on Jack himself. His laughter was infectious, and the way he treated everyone with warmth and respect made her question everything she'd been taught about humans. As they reached a quiet overlook that offered a breathtaking view of the space station's skyline, Jack leaned against the railing, staring out into the distance. "It's funny, you know. We've been out here among the stars for only a few generations, but we're still learning so much. There's just something about the unknown that keeps pulling us forward." Kira observed him closely, noting the distant look in his eyes. "And what is it that you seek in the unknown?" she asked, genuinely curious. Jack chuckled softly. "Connection, I guess. We're all out here searching for something bigger than ourselves, whether it's knowledge, purpose, or someone who understands us." His words sent a strange shiver down Kira's spine. It was as if he was speaking directly to her deepest thoughts. She quickly looked away, her bioluminescent freckles glowing slightly brighter. This was dangerous territory. Mirians didn't form emotional bonds. They saw them as weaknesses, distractions from their higher purposes. But as she stood there beside him, the soft hum of the city around them, she couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was something to be learned from these humans that went beyond technology or culture. Perhaps it was something deeper, something she had never allowed herself to explore. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Bond. The days on Valora Prime blurred together, each one blending into the next as Kira and Jack continued to explore the city. What began as an impromptu tour soon turned into regular meetings. Jack introduced her to more aspects of human culture, everything from their music to their strange sense of humor. And as the days passed, Kira found herself laughing more, her stoic facade crumbling under the weight of Jack's easygoing nature. Kira knew she was crossing lines she shouldn't. Her mission was clear: study, report, and return. But she couldn't resist the pull she felt toward this human. There was something captivating about the way he saw the world, his unyielding curiosity, and his unguarded emotions. It was intoxicating in a way she had never experienced before. One evening, after another day spent exploring the hidden corners of the space station, they found themselves back at the Overlook. The two moons hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the city. "You know, Kira," Jack began, his voice soft, "I've met a lot of different species out here, but you're different." Kira's heart skipped a beat. "Different? How?" Jack turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. "You're always so composed, so controlled. But there's something beneath the surface, something you're holding back. I can see it in your eyes." Kira tensed, her training screaming at her to deflect, to retreat. But she couldn't deny that Jack had seen through her defenses. "Humans feel too much," she finally said. "You let your emotions guide you. It's reckless." Jack shrugged. "Maybe. But isn't that what makes life interesting? Taking risks, feeling things even when it's scary." Kira opened her mouth to argue, but the words died in her throat. What could she say? That he was wrong? That emotions were a dangerous distraction? Yet even as she thought it, she realized how hollow those words felt. Her entire existence had been built around avoiding emotional connections. Yet here she was, on the brink of something she didn't fully understand. Before she could stop herself, she blurted out, "I've never felt like this before. It's unsettling." Jack's expression softened. "It's okay to feel, Kira. Maybe it's not what you're used to, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different." Kira's bioluminescent freckles flared brightly, betraying her turmoil. "You're making this difficult," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Jack took a step closer, his gaze locked on hers. "I'm not trying to make anything difficult. I like spending time with you. And I think you like it too, even if you're not ready to admit it." Kira's mind raced. This was dangerous. This was reckless. But as she looked into Jack's warm, understanding eyes, she felt her resolve weaken. Mirians weren't supposed to give in to such feelings. But for the first time in her life, Kira found herself wanting to defy everything she'd been taught. "I don't know what's happening to me," Kira admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack smiled gently. "Maybe you're just discovering something new, something you didn't know you were missing." Kira didn't respond, but deep down, she knew he was right. Something had changed within her, something she couldn't control. And as terrifying as it was, a part of her didn't want it to stop. Chapter 3. Breaking Down Barriers. The more time Kira spent with Jack, the more she found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about emotions and connections. Mirians valued control, order, and logic above all else. Emotions were seen as a weakness, a distraction from their true purpose. But now, Kira was beginning to wonder if maybe her people had been wrong. Jack had a way of seeing the world that was both naive and profound. He embraced every experience with open arms, regardless of the risks or potential pain. It was so different from the Miriam way of carefully measuring every decision, analyzing every outcome before taking action. Kira found herself drawn to Jack's perspective, even as it clashed with everything she believed in. There was a freedom in his approach that she had never allowed herself to experience, and as much as she tried to deny it, she was beginning to crave that freedom. One day, as they sat in a quiet park surrounded by exotic alien flora, Kira decided to open up in a way she never had before. "My people would see what I'm doing as a betrayal," she confessed, her voice tinged with guilt. "Forming emotional connections is considered a weakness. It's drilled into us from the moment we're born." Jack listened intently, his expression serious. "But why? What's so bad about caring for someone? Isn't that what makes life worth living?" Kira shook her head, struggling to put her thoughts into words. "To care is to lose control. It's to expose yourself to potential pain, to vulnerability. Myrians avoid it at all costs. We see it as a flaw in other species, a primitive instinct that holds them back." Jack leaned forward, his gaze intense. "But what if it's not a flaw? What if it's a strength? Caring for someone, risking getting hurt, that takes courage. It means you're alive, really alive, not just existing." Kira's bioluminescent freckles shimmered in response to her rising emotions. "But it's terrifying," she admitted. "I don't know how to handle it." Jack reached out and gently took her hand. "You don't have to handle it alone. You've got me." The simple act of holding hands sent a jolt of warmth through Kira's body. It was a strange, almost overwhelming sensation, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she allowed herself to lean into it, to embrace the connection she'd been so afraid of. For a long moment, they sat there in silence, hands intertwined, sharing a quiet understanding that went beyond words. Kira had always seen emotions as a burden, but now she was beginning to realize that they could also be a source of strength. "I never thought I'd say this," Kira murmured, "but I think you've taught me something important, Jack." Jack's smile was warm and genuine. "I think you've taught me something too, Kira. We're not so different, you and I. We're both just trying to find our way in this crazy universe." As they sat there, bathed in the soft glow of the park's lights, Kira felt something inside her shift. The walls she had carefully built around herself were beginning to crumble, replaced by a new sense of freedom and possibility. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. For the first time in her life, Kira allowed herself to fully embrace her emotions, to let go of the fear and uncertainty that had held her back for so long. And in doing so, she realized that maybe, just maybe, there was something beautiful in the chaos of human emotions. Chapter 4. Embracing the Unknown. Kira's transformation was subtle but undeniable. She still held on to many of her Miriam principles, but there was a newfound openness in her that hadn't existed before. She began to smile more freely, to laugh without holding back, and to experience the world in a way she never had. But with these changes came new challenges. As her emotional connection to Jack deepened, she found herself facing an internal struggle between her duty to her people and the growing bond she shared with him. The time for her departure was approaching. The mission was nearly complete, and she was expected to return to Myria to report her findings. But the thought of leaving Jack behind filled her with an ache she couldn't ignore. One evening, as they stood together at the overlook where it had all begun, Kira finally voiced her dilemma. "I have to leave soon," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "My mission is almost over." Jack's expression fell, but he quickly masked his disappointment with a small, understanding smile. "I knew this day would come, but that doesn't make it any easier." Kira's heart ached at the sight of his forced smile. She had never imagined that a simple mission would lead to such complicated emotions. "I never expected to feel this way," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "You've changed me, Jack. I don't know if I can go back to who I was before." Jack reached out and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized she'd shed. "You don't have to go back to who you were. You can be whoever you want to be. And no matter where you go, you'll always have a piece of this, of us, inside you." Kira's bioluminescent freckles flared brightly as a surge of conflicting emotions washed over her. She had never felt so torn in her life. Duty and desire warred within her, each pulling her in opposite directions. For a long moment, she simply stared into Jack's eyes, searching for answers she couldn't find within herself. And then, without thinking, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, but it quickly deepened as Kira allowed herself to fully embrace the emotions she had kept at bay for so long. It was a kiss filled with longing, with the bittersweet knowledge that their time together was limited. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. Jack's eyes were filled with a mixture of love and sadness. "No matter what happens next, I'm glad we met, Kira. You've made my life a little brighter." Kira smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with emotions she had never allowed herself to feel before. "And you've shown me that maybe emotions aren't such a bad thing after all." The decision that lay ahead was one of the hardest she had ever faced. She could return to Myria and continue living the life she had always known, or she could choose a different path, one filled with uncertainty, risk, and the possibility of heartbreak. But as she looked into Jack's eyes, Kira realized that sometimes the greatest discoveries in life come from stepping into the unknown. She had always believed that control was the key to strength, but now she understood that true strength came from embracing vulnerability, from opening oneself to the unpredictable nature of life and love. And so, with a deep breath, Kira made her choice, a choice that would change the course of her life forever. As Kira and Jack stood side by side, gazing out at the stars, they both knew that the future was uncertain. But for the first time, Kira wasn't afraid. She had learned that some things were worth risking everything for, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead, together. Chapter 5. A Daring Decision. Time was running out, and Kira could feel the pressure building. The Myrian Council had contacted her multiple times, reminding her that her mission was nearing completion and that her return was imminent. Each message was laced with subtle warnings about the dangers of forming attachments with humans. They reminded her that her report was expected to be devoid of bias, something she was no longer sure she could deliver. The dilemma gnawed at her relentlessly. Should she return to Myria and continue her life as before, or should she take a leap into the unknown, leaving everything she once held sacred behind? These thoughts plagued her as she and Jack wandered through the bustling streets of Valora Prime for what could be the last time. "I'm sensing a lot of tension," Jack observed as they stopped by a quiet cafe that overlooked a serene artificial lake. The shimmering waters reflected the lights of the city, casting a peaceful ambiance over the area. Kira sat in silence for a moment, staring into her drink as if it held the answers she sought. "I'm torn, Jack. My people expect me to return and provide an objective analysis of your species. But how can I be objective when I'm feeling things I've never felt before?" Jack's gaze softened as he reached across the table to take her hand in his. "You don't have to be objective, Kira. Sometimes life is about embracing subjectivity, about choosing what feels right for you, even if it's messy or uncertain." Kira's bioluminescent freckles flickered as she considered his words. "I've been raised to believe that emotions cloud judgment, that they lead to weakness and irrational decisions. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe emotions give us a kind of strength we can't find elsewhere." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "They do. Emotions are what push us to protect the people we care about, to fight for what we believe in, and to take risks that lead to the greatest rewards." As Kira absorbed his words, she couldn't help but reflect on how much she had changed. The Kira who had first arrived on Valora Prime wouldn't have even entertained the notion of staying with a human. Yet here she was, not just considering it, but yearning for it. "I've never made a decision based on my feelings before," Kira confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's terrifying." Jack squeezed her hand gently. "I won't pretend it's easy. But sometimes the things that scare us the most are the things that lead us to the most beautiful parts of life." Kira's heart raced as she looked at him, her internal conflict reaching a crescendo. Could she really abandon everything she'd been taught? Everything her people expected of her? Could she take a leap of faith and choose a path that was entirely her own? Before she could fully process her thoughts, an urgent communication flashed on the device embedded in her wrist. It was a direct order from the Mirian Council, demanding her immediate return. The message was clear. There would be consequences if she didn't comply. Kira's chest tightened as the reality of her situation hit her. She was out of time. The choice she had been avoiding could no longer be postponed. Jack watched her with concern, sensing the gravity of the moment. "What are you going to do, Kira?" Kira's eyes met his, and she saw the unspoken plea in his gaze. He wasn't asking her to stay, but his heart was clearly hoping she would. In that moment, Kira realized that her decision wasn't just about duty versus desire. It was about defining who she was and what kind of life she wanted to lead. Taking a deep breath, she stood up, determination hardening her expression. "I need to confront the council," she said, her voice steady. "But this time, I'm not going to let them dictate my life." Jack rose to stand beside her, his brow furrowed with worry. "Are you sure that's safe? They don't seem like the forgiving type." Kira offered him a small, reassuring smile. "I've learned something from you, Jack. It's time for me to take a risk." As she prepared to leave, Jack grabbed her hand one last time. "Whatever happens, just know that I'm here for you. And if you decide to come back, I'll be waiting." Kira's heart swelled with warmth at his words. "Thank you, Jack. You've shown me more than you know." With that, she turned and walked away, her mind set on the confrontation that awaited her. She knew that challenging the council would be dangerous, but for the first time, she felt like she was walking toward her own future, one that she was choosing for herself. Chapter 6. A New Path. Kira's return to Myria was met with immediate tension. The towering crystalline structures of the Myrian capital glittered under the pale light of their distant sun. But to Kira, the cold beauty of her home felt suffocating. Her people were efficient and emotionless as always, moving with precise purpose through the city's streets, devoid of the warmth and spontaneity she had grown accustomed to on Valora Prime. As she entered the council's chamber, she was greeted by the stern, impassive faces of the elders. Their gazes were as cold and calculating as she remembered, and the air was thick with unspoken judgment. "Kira of the Myrians," intoned the chief elder, his voice resonating with authority. "You have delayed your return beyond the acceptable parameters. We demand an explanation." Kira stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "I was conducting extended field research to gain a more thorough understanding of human behavior. In doing so, I discovered that our assumptions about them are flawed." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, the elders exchanging glances. "Flawed? Elaborate." Kira's bioluminescent freckles glowed softly as she spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. "We've always believed that emotions are a weakness, that they lead to irrationality and chaos. But in my time among the humans, I've seen how their emotions drive them to achieve incredible things. Their passion, their love, their desire to connect with others, these are not weaknesses. They are strengths." The chief elder's eyes narrowed. "You speak as though you've been influenced by these primitive beings. Your objectivity is compromised." Kira shook her head firmly. "No, my objectivity is clearer than ever. I've realized that we, the Myrians, have blinded ourselves by clinging to rigid ideals. We've cut ourselves off from one of the most powerful forces in the universe: connection. The humans have shown me that emotions can be a source of growth, not just individually, but as a species." Another elder spoke up, her tone icy. "Are you suggesting we abandon our ways and adopt the recklessness of the humans?" "I'm suggesting we find balance," Kira countered. "Our discipline and logic are valuable, but they are incomplete without the ability to connect with others on a deeper level. We can't truly understand other species, or ourselves, if we shut out the very things that make life meaningful." The council members exchanged whispered conversations, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright disapproval. Finally, the chief elder addressed her again. "You speak of dangerous ideas, Kira. You risk undermining the very foundation of our society. What you propose is nothing short of heresy." Kira's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "I'm not asking you to change overnight, but I believe we need to reevaluate our stance. We cannot evolve if we cling to outdated beliefs. If we truly seek knowledge and understanding, we must be willing to challenge even our most sacred doctrines." silence fell over the chamber, the tension thick enough to cut. The elders were not accustomed to such defiance, especially from someone as young as Kira. But the resolve in her eyes left no doubt that she was prepared to face whatever consequences came next. After what felt like an eternity, the chief elder spoke again, his tone measured. "You have been exposed to influences that may have compromised your loyalty to our ways. Therefore, we will place you under observation until your true intentions are determined." Kira knew this was a thinly veiled threat, one that could lead to her confinement or worse. But she also knew that standing up for what she believed in was the only path forward. "I accept your decision," she said calmly. "But know this, change is inevitable. Whether you embrace it or resist it, the universe is constantly evolving. And so must we." With that, she turned and left the chamber, her heart racing but her spirit unbroken. She had done what she came to do. She had confronted the council and spoken her truth. Now, she had to decide what her next steps would be. As she exited the towering crystal halls, Kira felt a strange sense of freedom. She was no longer bound by the rigid expectations of her people. She had tasted a different way of life, one filled with emotion, connection, and unpredictability, and she couldn't go back to the way things were. Her communicator buzzed softly, and she saw a message from Jack waiting for her. It was simple, but filled with hope. "I'm still waiting." A smile tugged at her lips as she made her way to the transport pad. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time she felt like she was truly in control of her destiny. And as she prepared to return to Valora Prime, she knew that she was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Kira had made her choice, not just between duty and desire, but between living a life dictated by fear and one driven by hope and connection. The universe was vast and unpredictable, but with Jack by her side, she was ready to face it head on.